Welcome to this lay-led online service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro for Sunday, August 2nd, 2020. Our minister, Reverend Paul Oakley, is on vacation, so some of our members have taken the lead in developing this online service. The coronavirus pandemic continues to keep our doors closed on our physical space on Sunday mornings. So we are learning about and taking advantage of technology that assists us in maintaining our connection online. There were several reasons behind my decision to become a member of UUFW about 8 years ago. Perhaps my primary motivation was to connect with people here in my local community through our shared values. In the past, Sunday services brought us together face-to-face in Fellowship Hall, where we joined together in singing hymns, shared in spiritual practices of meditation and prayer, heard thoughtful sermons and selected readings, and enjoyed coffee hours and monthly potluck lunches. The connections made here, I found, extend beyond the local Waynesboro area, and we are often reminded that we are part of a larger Unitarian Universalist movement. As described in their website, the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA, is the central organization for the Unitarian Universalist religious movement in the United States. The UUA's 1,000 plus member congregations are committed to 7 principles that include the worth of each person, the need for justice and compassion, and the right to choose one's own beliefs. Every year, UUs from across the country gather together for General Assembly, also known as GA. Members of the UUFW attend and report back to the rest of us highlights of the GA. As with our Sunday services, General Assembly this year had to move from being an in-person, face-to-face gathering to a virtual online format. The virtual GA took place in late June with the theme, Rooted, Inspired, and Ready. And today's service is based on some reflections from some of our members who participated in this year's online General Assembly. We don't know yet when we can be together again in our shared physical space, but hope these weekly services will help to strengthen our connection during the COVID-19 pandemic and also convey to any visitors the spirit of caring present in this fellowship. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from the hymn book, Singing the Living Tradition. It is language that makes us human. One half of language is to listen. Silence can exist without speech, but speech cannot live without silence. Listen to the speech of others. Listen even more to their silence. To pray is to listen to the revelations of nature, to the meaning of events. To listen to music is to listen also to silence and to find the stillness deepened and enriched.
Faith.
Compassion. Belonging.
This is from a piece by Congressman John Lewis entitled Walking with the Wind. It is an excerpt from the piece in his own words. About 15 of us children were outside my Aunt Zeneva's house, playing in her dirt yard. The sky began clouding over. The wind started picking up. Lightning flashed far off in the distance, and suddenly, I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. I was terrified. Aunt Zeneva was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children squeezed inside. Small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Zeneva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank and flooring beneath us began to bend. And then a corner of the room started lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky, with us in it. That was when Aunt Zeneva told us to clasp hands. Line up and hold hands, she said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. And so it went, back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed. They came together and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there, and eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind.
I don't look back as we ride away. Grandfather isn't there. He's gone to join our ancestors in answer to his prayer. For the days of the hunt are ended. There's barbed wire on the plain, and the council fires of the people shall burn no more again. We laid his tired old bones to rest, high on the wooden rack. Those bones are not the man I loved. There's no need to look back. We left for him his favorite bow, his arrows, pipe, and shield, the feathers of the eagle, earned in glory on the field, lest he need them on his journey to that land that lies beyond. But already vultures circle, and all will soon be gone. The cycle thus continues, as it has since first man's birth. For all have come and go again into our mother, earth. So now I see Grandfather in the rocks and in the air. I don't look back as we ride away. I see him everywhere. His spirit soars across the sky to the highest point above. Yet I see him all around me now, in everything he loved. He's living in the sacred hills, and in the sunset on the plain, in the knife-like winds of winter, the gentle autumn rain. You can see him in the river, and in the tall pine tree. And I hope, perhaps, somehow, you see a bit of him in me. Some men want to own the earth, taking much more than they need. They dig and burn and scar the earth to satisfy their greed. Their poison fills the rivers. Their smoke fills up the sky. If no one acts to stop them, the earth will surely die. It may already be too late. They've killed the buffalo. The beaver, the wolf are gone. Who'll be next to go? So I must fight my battles to help the earth survive. For as long as there are things he loved, Grandfather is alive. So I don't look back as we ride away, for only bones are there. Grandfather rides beside me in the wind that stirs my hair. And as we ride to battle, I know what I must do. For if I can help save our mother, it'll be the greatest coup.
Hello, everyone. I am Diane Ganiere, honored to be your new president. I want to thank you for the life you generously give in love to our fellowship, our community, and our country, in addition to the love you give your family, friends, and neighbors. You inspire me. I was one of your representatives at the Unitarian Universalist Association's June General Assembly. Following my report, you have Sharon Van Name, last year's president, and Florence Ferguson, board member, to look forward to, who will also share with you their reports. The first service at the general meeting was led by the people of the Wampanoag tribe. They lighted their fire to begin their ceremony just as we do, and then they lighted their sage and purified their outdoor area and themselves. They greeted the four directions, east, south, west, and north, and to honor life, they drummed, chanted, and danced. It set the stage for the rest of the scheduled events. Between 1/3 to 1/2 of the presenters, panelists, group leaders, musicians, technicians, and executives were members of marginalized people: Black, Mexican, Native American, LGBTQs, and disabled people. I was proud to be a part of our UUA, which is listening and beyond just recognizing pain, trying a different way of doing things. They made sure that members of historically ignored groups were placed in the center. Back in the 60s, I spoke with one of my classmates who was teaching at an Indian mission in northern Wisconsin. I asked her, "What is it like?" And I have never forgotten her response. She said, "The children seem to have such a deep loneliness. We know so much more about the human being now. Educating is not just pouring things into an empty vessel, but education is altering an organism with a genetic memory of all the circumstances that have formed it. When Indigenous people say that the land is their body and their body is the land, that is how they feel. Some were not allowed to stay on the lands they had inhabited for 12,000 years. And even many of those that were left in place had children taken to mission schools. It is an oversimplification to view the conquest of America as motivated only by unmitigated greed for land and resources. Some people came because they were starving, some because they were oppressed and persecuted. But the desire to acquire was an undeniably huge part of the pursuit, and to the victor went the spoils. In her lecture on colonialism and indigenous erasure and exclusion, Professor Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz condemned the doctrine of discovery, which was actually legitimized as early as 1494 in, of all things, a papal bull, giving any European country permission to seize any non-Christian country for, get this, spiritual purposes, along with cultural and legal ones. The doctrine is still ensconced in the 1823 decision of the John Marshall Court case, Johnson versus Mintosh, and further, it is articulated in 1934's Indian Reorganization Act. This act required any transfer of native land to be subject to the approval of Congress. The interpretation of this Reorganization Act will determine the outcome of the Wampanoags Bill 312. You remember the Wampanoag were the ones who gave us our first service of the General Assembly. This bill is currently waiting for the approval of Senate. I signed the Wampanoags petition, but on further digging, found the case is very complicated. All of the cases I have mentioned are on the internet, to my surprise, and the more recent ones actually include oral recordings, so you can hear Ginsburg and Soter and Scalia. All of the cases are very historically revealing, especially the 1823 John Marshall decision. In the course of my research, I came upon the Upstander Project involving land acknowledgement. The first sentence of their affirmation is, "We are on indigenous land." They admit that the public acknowledgement of specific places does not undo the harm still being perpetrated. Yet they have a process for helping anyone who is interested in acknowledging the tribe from whom his or her land was taken. Many justice problems were addressed in the assembly, and I left inspired with deeper understandings. All of us have unique gifts that we are already bringing to tasks we feel most likely to benefit. It is fortunate that we can support one another. To quote from more than one of people of color at the assembly, "We are the hopes and dreams of many ancestors."
Good morning. I'm Florence Ferguson, and as your delegate to the virtual General Assembly back in June, I sat through all of the business sessions. Sadly, they lack the passionate floor debates that I remember from past GAs, but I did my duty and voted. And if you're interested, the UUA website has a summary of the amendments, resolutions, and actions that were adopted. I also watched several of the featured speakers, including the Ware Lecture by Naomi Klein. But what I would like to share with you today is a workshop I attended titled Faith Forward, A Path for Engagement. I chose this workshop because as a member of the board and of the membership team, we often talk about how to reach younger and more diverse prospective members, how to help new members develop a strong identity as UUs, and how to develop them into the leaders we will need tomorrow. The workshop introduced the initiative Faith Forward from Visitor to Leader. It was described as a guided path for Unitarian Universalists to follow in their congregations, helping them navigate from building connections early on to finding their sense of belonging as a member, to serving as a leader and boldly living their faith. Faith Forward teaches how we do church and what it really means to be a member of a religious community. This is valuable information for those coming to Unitarian Universalism from other religious backgrounds, as well as the nones or the unchurched. Faith Forward is a structured program consisting of 3 separate paths: core, advanced, and leadership. Each path includes multiple classes that range from 5 to 12 sessions each. Detailed guidance and material are provided for each class. For example, the core path includes classes for inquirers and new members, and classes on UU history, spiritual practice, and the elevator speech. Faith Forward is meant to be a primarily lay-led program. It's currently being used in 60 UU congregations from large to small. Testimonies by people who have participated in the classes emphasize how their identities as Unitarian Universalists have grown stronger and more deeply felt. One long-term member explained that the program gave her a deeper and richer experience of her faith. She emphasized the value of developing an identity as a Unitarian Universalist that goes beyond a focus centered on the minister or on friendships or some other aspect of congregational life. Another speaker told of coming to realize how service in the community is aligned with his UU faith. One key component of Faith Forward is helping congregants discern how they can best serve, lead, and use their gifts to build beloved community. I especially like the emphasis on experiencing Unitarian Universalism as a religious tradition with deep roots and a rich history and theology that also includes living out our faith in the wider community. As the workshop leader said, now more than ever we must answer the call to engage in service and justice work with a spiritual grounding. Faith Forward was developed by the First Unitarian Church of Dallas. It is not free, but one of the modules in the core path titled Spiritual Practice is being offered for free for a period of time. It is a 12-week class. I subscribed to it thinking it might be something we could pursue in a virtual way to help us stay connected to our faith and each other while we are not having services. We were told that the classes are easily adapted to an online format. So, if you would like to examine the materials with me and see if we want to pursue it, just let me know. Give me a call. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Sharon Van Name, and I also served as a delegate to this year's virtual GA. This was my second one. I attended my first in person in New Orleans. This was a very different experience, in some ways better and in some ways worse. I miss the personal connections and the sense of community that comes from being with UUs from around the country. And I definitely am sorry that we weren't able to make a road trip to Providence with Florence and Diane. On the plus side, since GA was happening on my computer, I could take it with me as I was doing things around the house. The sessions were all recorded, and so I'm still attending GA as I watch sessions that I missed that particular week. And really, my chairs are way more comfortable than anything in a convention center. Along with the business sessions that Florence mentioned, there are 3 worship services at the UUA website, which I would encourage you to check out. They were really well done. I'd like to talk today about one of the sessions that I did attend that concerned UU the Vote. This is a nationwide effort by UUs to work in partnership with other groups to bring in those at the margins of democracy, either because they have been prevented from participating or because they haven't felt that their participation matters. This effort is not just focused on the 2020 election, but aims to ensure free and fair elections going forward, and to strengthen the capacity of organizations led by people of color, and to create and enhance our alliances with them. There are 3 main areas for maintaining or expanding the number of voters. In states where votes are being actively suppressed, we can help people check their registration status to make sure that they haven't been purged. Thankfully, that's not much of an issue here in Virginia. But here, we can focus on people that are not registered. Convincing them to become engaged is always important, but it's even more so this year when so very much is at stake. The third area concerns the restoration of voting rights. This is an area that's dear to my heart. In most states, when a person completes their sentence, their rights are automatically restored. But here in Virginia, it's done on a case-by-case basis. One of our tasks is to help people check their restoration status, because their rights may have already been restored and they're not even aware of it. If that's not the case, we can help them to make the request to have their rights restored. Once that happens, it's critical that they understand that they still need to register to vote before they can participate in the next election. Why is all of this so important? Well, the results of the November election must be overwhelming and indisputable. This is our immediate critical task. Going forward, becoming eligible and voting for the first time can lead to the habit of voting, both in local elections, state elections, and federal elections. And we know that local elections is where the decisions get made that affect our day-to-day life. Finally, it's so important for everyone to feel that they have the power to make changes that our country so desperately needs. Before the pandemic, the social justice team had made UU the Vote one of their priorities. We can still do this work by phone, text, postcards, and Zoom while ensuring our safety and the well-being of others. And in this time of fear and anxiety, it gives us something real and vital to do. I invite you to help fire up that effort so that all can take their place at the table and not be relegated to the margins of democracy. As Florence, Diane, and I discussed our GA experiences, this theme of centering those at the margins became clear. whether it related to Native Americans, young adults and newcomers to our faith, or those who can't or don't vote. There were many other issues raised as well, and each of us was enlightened and inspired by our participation. We thank you for allowing us to represent you at GA, and we encourage you to consider participating yourself next year, perhaps in person or virtually. It was a great experience. I can't think of any more fitting way to close our service than with the last words of John Lewis, published in the New York Times on the day of his funeral. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.